Good afternoon, everybody. So excited to be here at the State Fair Cannabis Awards. We are with the Department of Cannabis Control, and we are happy to be hosting this panel today. Today's panel is entitled, Why Buy Legal? In other words, does it matter where you get your weed from? We think it does. Does it matter if we get it from our high school best friend or a licensed shop? Absolutely. So we've brought along some subject matter experts from the department today to walk us through the reasons you might be interested in purchasing from the legal market. Today, we are grateful to have with us Michael Cheng, our Deputy Director of Cannabis Licensing. Michael's been with the state since 2018, serving as the Licensing Manager and Licensing Section Chief within the California Department of Public Health's Manufactured Cannabis Safety Branch and Licensing Manager with the Bureau of Cannabis Control. And he now is the Deputy Director of Licensing with the Bureau, a new role for him. And Michael, thank you for joining us today. We also have with us Devin Gray, who serves as a manager within the department's Policy and Research Division. Devin's been involved in cannabis regulation with the state for over 7 years, working with cities and counties to expand legal cannabis retail access through the local jurisdiction retail access grant program. Devin, thanks for joining us. And next we have Dr. Matt Khosh. Matt is a senior environmental scientist in our compliance division, specializing in cannabis manufacturing operations. He's been working in cannabis regulation for almost 5 years. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you. Before we get started, I want to note that all of this year's State Cannabis Cup Award winners are licensed, regulated cannabis growers. They are part of what we license and what we work towards to create a safe, sustainable marketplace for consumers and producers. We believe that California produces the best cannabis in the world, and the Department of Cannabis Control, we are grateful to play our part in that. As the regulatory agency that licenses all commercial cannabis activity, we streamline regulations to improve consumer safety and increase access to the regulated cannabis products. While we know you are enjoying the beautiful displays here and the great education on the history of cannabis, we hope you leave the fair today knowing how to find licensed dispensaries, how to spot illegal dispensaries, and how your purchases impact the market and what it means to shop from licensed cannabis stores, and how legal cannabis stacks up against illegal cannabis. So I have to remember to use my clicker and my microphone, and I'm gonna try really hard to do that today. So with that, we're gonna head into the why. And this question's for all of you. Why should consumers support the legal marketplace? We'll start with you, Michael.
Thank you, Cassandra. So all of our legal licensee that are licensed with DCC, in order for them to move any product from seed to sale, it goes through a rigorous testing. It goes through rigorous at different stages of the manufacturing, from manufacturing to distribution to retails, so that by buying from the legal market, you can ensure that all the products you purchase are going through all the testing, make sure that there's no glass, no pesticide, no chemical, so that you're getting the most pure products out there. And also by purchasing from the legal markets, the DCC has been working closely with a lot of local jurisdictions on supporting the smaller businesses, minority businesses, to ensure that they have a market within the legal market. So by doing that, we're really providing a lot of assistance to those as well too. So.
Right, those are great points, that the legal market helps support equity businesses,
Absolutely.
Mom and pop businesses. When you're buying from those, you're supporting your community, the taxes that go, all those sorts of things. Devin, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would say another really important benefit of purchasing from the licensed cannabis market is that products sold by licensed retailers are they're in child-resistant packaging. So if you have young ones at home, it reduces the chance that they might get into it by accident, which would be really bad. It's also has a tamper-evident seal so that maintains freshness, make sure that the product is not adulterated or tampered with as it moves through the supply chain, and finally to you, the end consumer. Another really important benefit of buying from the legal cannabis market is the taxes that come from the sale of cannabis goods. So they go towards all sorts of great community reinvestment programs to help communities that were disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs. So those grants provide things like job training and reentry programs. They provide substance use and addiction treatment, mental health services, assistance navigating the legal system, things like that. So taxes also go towards programs to protect the environment, environmental restoration efforts. Illegal cannabis cultivation can cause massive environmental damage that can be, very expensive and time-consuming to clean up. That if not done correctly is going to poison groundwater and cause all sorts of major environmental issues. So a good portion of taxes from the legal sale of cannabis go towards environmental protection efforts.
Yeah, and piggybacking off that, our next panel, which is at 3, will deeper dive into some of those environmental protections, and we'll be joined with CDFW. So stick around if you want to hear more about the environmental impacts. Matt, how about you?
Yeah, I'll touch a little bit on that as well, the environmental impacts. So our legal licensees, they're required to maintain certain environmental standards and put these safeguards that protect our environment, which illegal operations are not subject to. So I think that's a very important point. I think another one is that we do have a team of inspectors that we go around and randomly spot check these cultivation facilities and these manufacturing facilities to ensure that they're operating in safe and clean environments, to ensure that the products that they're making are both safe and clean for the California consumers. Also, we ensure that they're following correct labor practices to safeguard the health and safety of their workers, which, again, illegal operations do not have to abide by. So I think those are, again, some other great points why you should be buying from the legal market.
Absolutely. Really important discussion when we start talking about fair labor practices, but also about employment in your community. Legal cannabis operators provide good jobs in communities, and by supporting legal operators, you're supporting your communities where you live, you're supporting people who may have a marginalized skills that can come in entry level into an industry that is very open and accepting. It provides employment for people that is good paying jobs and that it creates sustainable living within your community. So when you're buying from your dude, you are only supporting your dude. So to get into the legal shops and to really support those people in your community that are working hard and playing by the rules is incredibly important. Thank you guys for that perspective. Next question is, how do you find a legal cannabis store and how do you spot the fakes? We'll start with you, Michael.
Yeah, so our DCC website contains a lot of information. We also have our website that has the search at cannabis.
Yep, it's on the screen right behind you, our unified license search.
Yes, so on that website, you'll be able to verify all the licensees to see whether they have a valid licenses with the state, whether they are in good standing. And also on that website, you'll be able to search to see where the closest dispensary around your neighborhood or where you want to make purchase. We also have regulations in place where we require all the dispensary to display the license certificates, including the QR code, by the window. So anytime when you want to go to the store, you're unsure, you can scan it to make sure they are in a good standing. all of our licensed dispensary required dual licensing. So they need to receive a state license as well as a local permit.
Right.
So ensure that the one that you're going to make the purchase are meeting all the requirements, both at state level and a local level. And with the QR code, you can quickly identify to see the status. I know there's a lot of website out there you can search for dispensary around, like Yelp, WeMap, Google. Like they can go give you a lot of dispensary around, but to know which one is legal, please go to our website. Our website can verify that they are indeed in good standing, and we encourage people to do that. Once you find the dispensary around you, we have two different types of dispensary license that we issue. One is the storefront, one is non-storefront. So with the storefront, you can purchase online, pick up in the store, visit them in the store, or we do have a retail services licenses that we can also go into and addressing that. I know that we also have a lot of cannabis events out there, and they are also required to post their license with the cannabis event. So when you go to, the Emerald Cup, the Grassland in San Francisco, make sure that you are going to only purchase from those that have a license on display.
Right.
And I think that's a very, very critical part.
Yeah, absolutely. So any of your cannabis events that you would attend will definitely have their license posted. If you look up on the screen, you can see there's a dispensary. I believe this is one in Humboldt County that has the QR code. That'll be plainly posted on the front of the dispensary. Their license name, their license hours. Licensed dispensaries are only permitted to be open until 10 p.m. So if you find a dispensary open at 2 a.m., not licensed. And at our table here, we have these really cool cards. You just pick them up. There's a QR code in the back. It'll take you directly to the website. You can type in your city, and all the legal dispensaries in your city will pop right up. And so we make it super easy for you. As Michael said, we want to avoid not avoid weed maps, but when you look up places online and you're just Googling it or Yelping it or weed mapping it, you have a high likelihood that you may find a dispensary that isn't legal. And the department works very hard with local law enforcement to try to combat the illegal market, but we definitely rely on consumers to support legal dispensaries to help us as well. Devin or Matt, do either of you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would add that it can be especially hard to spot an unlicensed dispensary compared to a licensed dispensary. Obviously, they go to great lengths to try to fit in and kind of hide what they're really doing there. So, it can be difficult to know whether or not the location you're visiting is licensed. But there are some key hallmarks that you can look for to spot unlicensed businesses. So that would be things like heavily tinted or blacked out windows. If it seems like they're kind of trying to conceal what's going on inside the building, kind of beyond what they might do for normal security purposes. If the building seems kind of run down or grungy or dirty, our licensed retailers are professional businesses. They run very professional operations. So if you show up somewhere and it looks very unprofessional and just kind of run down and it feels kind of sketchy, then trust your gut. That's probably a pretty good sign that that's not a licensed location. Other things you can look for, like Cassandra said, the hours of operation. So licensed retailers are only allowed to sell cannabis between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. So if you see someone selling cannabis outside of those hours, that's a very good indicator that they're likely not licensed. Another thing would be if a store is selling cannabis out of like a bulk unpackaged jar and they're kind of pulling out amounts of cannabis and weighing those out. That's not allowed. All cannabis sold at licensed retailers is required to be pre-packaged just to maintain the quality of that product throughout the supply and as it gets to that retail store. So retailers shouldn't be doing any sort of packaging or labeling activities with cannabis. Another one would be if they're not checking IDs at the door, or they're not properly checking IDs. If they're doing sweepstakes, raffles, free giveaways, those sorts of activities aren't allowed at licensed locations. So those are just some things that you can look for. You know, obviously you want to check their website, make sure that the license number is posted there on the website. You know, if you don't see a license on the website, that might be a sign. But, you know, if you don't see a license posted at the actual premises, at the actual location, then that's a pretty good signal that they may not be licensed.
Thanks, Devin. Matt, how about you?
Yeah, so those are all some really great points. I think one thing that we should discuss, though, is from a consumer aspect and a consumer safety standpoint, the products that you would be buying at an illegal dispensary almost certainly have not been tested to the same degree that products from a legal dispensary have. So I believe Michael said it earlier in the talk that it's a requirement for all cannabis and products that are made with cannabis that are sold at a legal dispensary that they have to go through state mandated compliance testing to ensure that they don't have, you know, chemicals in them or pesticides or illegal fertilizers. So, you know, again, the legal dispensaries and stuff that you buy from there don't have to go through that same testing. And you know, it may be things as benign as there may be like some extra hair or like some extra insects in the cannabis that you're getting, but it may go into like the gross out factor. Like, you know, cannabis has a lot of pests in there, like rats, and you know, rats are, you know, they leave feces, and so it's a problem in that. But it can also go into issues such as mold on cannabis, stuff like salmonella, E. coli in products. You know, again, they're not testing for how much pesticides they're using, and illegal grow operations do not have to be certified in pesticide application practices. So they may be overspraying or not leaving it out long enough before they harvest. So I think that's an important thing to consider when you're making your purchases, that it's, you know, for your own safety as well from a consumer standpoint.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and another thing that I always encourage people is that when you do go to a dispensary, even though when you see they post the certificates on, you know, in the window or the QR code, make sure you scan it, make sure you check, right? Because we at a DCC, we make sure that we don't just issue license, we make sure that they're in compliance, we make sure they're in good standing. So scan on that QR code is gonna tell you whether their license still in active status or they might be no longer in active status. And also make sure that just because they post it doesn't mean that might not be the right license certificate belong to that dispensary, right? So make sure that you check the address on it, that it's indeed the right address, to make sure that it is the right license at the right locations, because we have seen people where they somehow get another people's license and post it at different locations. So even though you'd be walking to one that might look like a, you know, legal dispensary, but they might be using another license, and you are not sure the broad product you're getting. So that's very important as well too.
Right. Well, yeah, it's so interesting to me. You know, there is an amount of responsibility that's on the consumer to find a legal space, but as someone who has a loved one who uses cannabis medicinally, I would never want that person to be ingesting rat feces or heavy metals or any of those things. So I'm willing to be responsible and take the responsibility and time to find licensed legal locations and buy licensed legal products. It's really important to me on a personal level. So I appreciate the information that you're sharing today. And really what we're talking about is consumer purchase power. You know, as consumers, if we move into an era where we are purchasing legally on a regular basis, that is going to be the biggest deterrent to the black market, is getting consumers into legal spaces with legal companies, good actors who are doing all the right things and supporting those small businesses and making sure that our dollars, our consumer dollars, are going in the right places. So with that said, I'd like to talk to Devin a little bit about the retail access grants. And Devin, if you'll talk a little bit about that, I know it's important to your work.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as was mentioned earlier, in California, we have a dual regulatory structure for cannabis. So businesses are subject to regulation at both the state level. You have to get a license from DCC, but they're also subject to regulation at the local level. Usually there's a requirement for a local license. What that means is local jurisdictions in California can prohibit the establishment of cannabis businesses within their jurisdiction. So California is a patchwork of areas where it is or is not legal to establish a legal cannabis business. So I believe currently about 56% of cities and counties in California prohibit all cannabis businesses. And just under 2/3, 61%, prohibit the establishment of retail businesses. So that means people living in areas of the state where no legal stores are allowed, they may have no other option but to turn to unlicensed sources to obtain cannabis. So the purpose of this grant program is to provide funding to cities and counties in California that don't currently license cannabis retailers to assist them establishing local licensing programs and issuing licenses to cannabis retail businesses. This is the first of its kind program that we know of, so it's been very exciting to undertake this. I've been working on it. I've been involved in it for about a year now. We recently announced some grant awards for cities and counties, and we'll be announcing more awards in the future based on the number of retailer licenses issued. So we're really hoping that this grant program is going to increase access to safe, tested cannabis products for existing cannabis consumers in California.
That's really, really great information. And if you see up on the board here, we have the map of California. The green areas are permissive areas, and the orange areas are known as cannabis deserts, right, Devin? That's kind of a word we use for that, where you don't have access to the legal marketplace. So I know our Policy and Research Division is working very diligently to try to expand access for cannabis consumers so that they have the ability to support the legal marketplace where they live. There is a website, but you can just go to the cannabis.ca.gov website and navigate around in there and you'll find it. And you can look up to see if a particular jurisdiction is permissive or not. And so up here on the screen, we have some photos of harms from the illegal marketplace. So if you can see, these are actual photos from illegal grow sites that show the conditions in which the cannabis is being packaged at illegal grow sites. There's also, we found through our enforcement division, guns, cash, human trafficking, and I know we touched on it a little bit. Do any of you have anything to add to those as well? Devin?
Yeah, I would say, when you purchase from the unlicensed market, there are real harms that are occurring, even if you don't see them, directly, even if, directly in that transaction that you have with the unlicensed seller. But yeah, there are harms downstream of that, the people who cultivated that cannabis illegally. In California, we're dealing with lots of criminal, transnational criminal organizations, cartels, gang activity, all sorts of issues with human trafficking, people kind of being held against their will and forced to trim, at illegal grow sites and things like that. There's massive environmental damage, like we mentioned previously, and I believe the panel after us is going to be talking more about that, so please stick around. That's going to be very interesting for sure. So, even though you may not see any harms when you're making that purchase transaction, there are real effects downstream. So think about where your cannabis is coming from. Think about who is involved in growing that cannabis, in trimming it, in processing it, distributing it, and bringing it to you ultimately as the end consumer. So, licensed cannabis businesses comply with state regulations to protect consumers, to protect the environment, to protect communities, and all sorts of good things like that. So I just really want to emphasize that point.
Matt, anything to add?
Yeah, I know we've talked about it quite a bit already, about the potential contaminations that can be found in cannabis products or cannabis. once you buy it from the illegal marketplace. But I think it's, again, good to kind of stress that point again, in that a lot of consumers, they're buying it for medicinal purposes, and you wouldn't want to be ingesting medicine that has stuff like heavy metals like lead or mercury or arsenic in it. And cannabis, can have those heavy metals found in it quite prevalently, especially in stuff that's from the unlicensed market. And it's like that's one of the main tests that gets done on all products before it goes to market. I will say that there is no level of lead or mercury that anybody should be exposed to. So even if there's even just a little bit in there, it's still not good for you. I think, we kind of talked about the whole pesticides issue from the cultivation side, but again, those can be quite prevalent, and they can end up in the cannabis and the products that you ingest. A lot of the cannabis extracts, when they're extracting and concentrating the cannabinoids that's in the plant, it also concentrates these pesticides or these contaminants that may be in the cannabis as well. So, maybe it's only in a small amount that's on the plant itself, but once it gets processed into a final form product, it can manifest into really unsafe levels for the consumer. So I think that's, again, an important thing to stress, like your dollars are supporting these businesses that are abiding by the regulations set forth by the state. But again, as a consumer safety standpoint, I would never advocate, friends or family to not buy from a legal shop because of those potentials and those unknowns that you may come across if you're buying from an illegal source.
Yeah, and I would just like to add on to that. Another huge benefit from buying legal cannabis is it's labeled with the amount of cannabinoids in the product. It's labeled with the amount of THC. So, you know exactly what you're getting. You know what's in that product. You're not just guessing at, how high you're going to get or what effect the cannabis is going to have on you. Cannabis sold illegally, they can tell you, they can make up any number they want and say there's this much THC in the product, and you're going to have no way of knowing. You're just going to have to trust them. So really, huge benefit is knowing exactly how much THC you're going to get, and understanding, realizing that you're buying a clean product, as Matt said, that has been tested for pesticides and processing chemicals, heavy metals, everything like that. So, when you buy from the licensed market, you know what you're getting, and you're getting a product that's been tested for all sorts of things that you would want your cannabis to be tested for.
Yeah, another thing, personally for me, I have two little ones at home. By buying from an illegal market, you can get a product out of a Ziploc bag, little containers, and they are not buying to any of our packaging labeling requirements. So they might have something that's from the packaging wise, look just like any candy that's out there. And if I were to bring the product home, I don't want my kids to be attracted to that or have easy access to that. So by purchasing from a legal market, you can make sure that the packaging meet all the requirements, and also they are child-proofed, so that for people who have little one at home, make sure that they don't have easy access to that. And for that, I think it's super important as well too.
Yeah, there's no legal cannabis out there. Let's see if we can get to the picture. Taking a minute. Sorry, gonna flip back there. There's no Stony Patch legal cannabis out in the world that looks like, what do those look like? Sour monsters. But yeah, that doesn't exist in legal packaging. So it's pretty amazing, just that little bit of added safety to make sure that your packaging isn't highly attractive to children, to make sure that your packaging is more resistant to just easy opening. Those are all things that protect the most vulnerable in our society, our kids. And, while cannabis is legal, it should also be safe. And so supporting the legal market helps promote safe packaging and safe access. So I think we have one more. Sorry, I'm flipping back through this. And so the licensed marketplace, look at those beautiful farms. They look great. When you can see the difference between that and that. Our legal growers are absolutely doing the right things. They're out there, they're working hard to make sure the environment isn't impacted. They're working hard to make sure that they're in compliance with the law. They do great things when it comes to education. They're doing great things for regenerative farming. I think we've seen a lot this week. A lot of our legal outdoor cultivators talk about their regenerative farming practices. All of that happens within a legal marketplace. So our last question for our panel is, what can be done if a consumer believes they have encountered an illegal product or business? Michael, you want to take first stab at this?
Yes, absolutely. So at DCC, we have several divisions, both the compliance as well as our enforcement divisions. They constantly working with local jurisdiction, some federal organizations, licensee organizations, AORB, the Agricultural Labor Relation Board. We're constantly working with them to ensure that we're addressing all the illegal markets out there. We do have on our website, we do have a complaints inbox that we have team constantly reviewing that, and we do a thorough research and investigation to any of the illegal market, illegal business. So it's any time when we need public health, right? So we encourage everyone to, if you've identified any illegal market, illegal business, or anyone that is endangering the public, please reach out to DCC, reach out to our complaint inboxes, and we are happy to address any issues that's out there.
Thanks, Michael. Devin, and anything to add?
Yeah. So like Michael said, go to our website, submit a complaint. We have a form there on our website that you can fill out. That can be done completely anonymously. So if that, don't let that deter you. There's no way we could trace that back to you if you choose not to put your identity when you submit that complaint. The other thing that's really important to do, so in addition to submitting a complaint with us, the DCC, we recommend that you reach out to your local law enforcement agency. Our enforcement staff work really closely with local law enforcement in coordinating and shutting down illegal businesses. So the best way you're going to get your complaint addressed quickly is, submit it to us, but also contact your local law enforcement, and that'll help us coordinate with them as we start to move in and investigate that complaint.
Matt?
I think another thing to keep in mind when you're submitting a complaint, especially if it's against a specific product, especially if it's an unlicensed product, keep the packaging and keep the details from that packaging, and you can submit those details. I believe you can upload photos via the complaints.
Yeah.
And if not, all our complaints are thoroughly investigated, and someone from our team will reach out to you if you still have the packaging, and they may ask for pictures if you can't submit it online. But yeah, all our complaints are thoroughly investigated and routed to the correct personnel, or if it's not done internally within the department, we work with external partner agencies to thoroughly follow up on all complaints submitted.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so, when we're talking about legal versus illegal retailers and marketplace, there's a long history of people shying away from law enforcement. But our legal operators, they do not shy away from our law enforcement or our compliance divisions or our licensing divisions, because they are doing the right things and they are making the right calls every single day. And so if you suspect illegal activity in your area, you're actually supporting the legal marketplace by making those reports. So, I just wanted to kind of reinforce that and make sure that you know that in reporting illegal activity, that is another way to support the legal marketplace. And I think that's about all we have for today. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys so much for joining me up here on stage today. I hope you're having a good time at the fair. Please stop by the booth, pick up a card with a QR code on it so you can help find your legal retailers in the community near you. And we appreciate the Cannabis Cup. Congratulations again to all the award winners. We've seen some beautiful frosty nugs out here this week, right? It's been great. Thanks, guys.